to face the unknown and ponder the question. What if?
Hello and welcome back to A Stark Contrast, where we discuss the differences and similarities from Marvel Comics to their MCU counterparts. And we are your hosts, Geoffrey
and Dai. What's up? Number 10.
Number 10. Yeah.
Number 10.
10th episode.
10th episode.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
Wild. It's kind of crazy, right?
Ooh.
Like 10 episodes deep is pretty wild. Did you think we were going to get this far? I know that's kind of funny to say, but
it's just the fact that we're able to keep doing this and like people are still tuning in and listening and giving honest, amazing feedback and are very interested, and we're hearing from all over or from the world, and it's like, oh wow,
I love it.
Yeah, it's like a new, at least for me, it's like a newfound like passion, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, for sure. Like this is great. The fact I can like express this passion out in this format, yeah.
Oh, platform. Amazing. No, platform is a great word for it.
So,
so hey, we're here for number 10.
We're also getting blessed by Marvel this year by just having
there's so much,
like unlimited amounts of just content to discuss.
Eating very well, as they say.
I can't even keep up sometimes.
Yeah. We were just discussing real quick, like about, Shang-Chi and the Eternals trailer and What If, and we still haven't even seen Ms. Marvel come to the table with a date release yet.
Or anything from Hawkeye also.
And nothing from Hawkeye. And of course, our friend Spider-Man, who is still missing in action. But, it's going to be a crazy season. Like, it could change any second now.
There's 4 months left in the year.
That's
actually, it's gonna be like 3 months because August is almost over.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like next week is September.
Yeah.
Or, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So real quick, we've hit 10 episodes, and let's do a real quick flashback of who we've already covered for the new listeners or people who just forgot. We have done and covered Iron Man, Spider-Man, Captain America, Scarlet Witch with our friend, special guest, Stephen Ray Morris. Thank you very much. Loki, Mini Marvel #1, where we did a Q&A between Geoffrey and I, Black Widow, Jessica Jones, and of course, Black Panther. So that's pretty awesome that we have that under our belt so far, and much more to come. I do have some news for you, Geoffrey.
Oh,
this is the redacted note in my note here.
Oh,
we have, speaking of people across the globe.
A new one.
New listener news in Ireland.
Okay.
So hello to our Ireland friends.
Yes.
And Austria.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Austria,
that's amazing.
So hello to you both. Thanks. Welcome. We hope you love what you hear. I think we can kind of roll into it. So
let's do it.
This week is going to be really interesting, or this episode rather, with the hype of Disney Plus and the shows that they're dropping. Of course, the latest one is What If? And if this is a new concept to you, this actually originated in the comic books. And before I get too deep into that, just wanted to say once again, we are not experts. We don't claim to be. Just enjoy what we're saying. Enjoy the discussion. And we'd love to hear from you. So feel free to shoot us a message anytime. So this is actually, this is part of this segment of comic book history where Stan kind of let go of things, where he wasn't necessarily like the sole creator of these things, of these titles and these characters. And so this is where you kind of start to see things that are presented by Stan Lee, not so much created by.
Yeah.
And so the first issue actually dropped in February 1977. Because he's busy doing other stuff and growing the properties. Yeah. And the first issue was What If Spider-Man Had Joined the Fantastic Four? Which, funny enough, he actually does later on. Decades later.
Like, did he replace somebody on
or
just
they became
joined?
the Fantastic Five.
Okay.
And they had fives on their chests.
Nice.
And, instead of a spider emblem, he had a five. And so the first issue in particular was conceived, written, and edited by Roy Thomas. I say conceived because it's literally written as conceived, which is really interesting. Drawn by Jim Craig, inked by Pablo Marcos, colored by Janice Cohen, one of the initial female creators in the biz, which is pretty awesome, with John Costanza on lettering. And so I wanted to pull this quote from Wikipedia first and foremost, because it's quite good. It kind of sums it all up in one neat little sentence. And it defines what if as stories explore how the Marvel Universe might have unfolded if key moments in its history had not occurred as they did in mainstream continuity. Mm-hmm. So more or less, that's what we're hearing in trailers, very similarly. It has over about more than 200 issues.
Oh, wow.
And 13 volumes.
Oh, geez.
Since 1977.
Okay.
And that in particular is throughout 2018, which is relatively recent. I honestly it didn't dawn on me that they were that current. I thought they dropped it maybe in 2005 or so, but some made it through. And they're actually re-releasing they're re-releasing new volumes of the collections.
Okay. Oh,
so there's 2 or 3 out. I almost picked one up for Free Comic Book Day, actually. But I have them here and I have some digitally. So what was the first, do you recall the first time you'd even heard of this concept?
Of What If?
Of What If, yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's when the trailer
dropped.
I was like, I didn't even know this was like a.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was like a con. I thought it was kind of just like that would be cool to see.
Yeah.
But then I was like, oh, it's an actual comic book run.
Right.
So I'm like, that's exciting.
So do you recall even hearing about it from San Diego Comic-Con in 2019?
Oh yeah, during the hall. Yeah.
I was in that hall.
Nice.
It was very difficult to get into, but our group, real quick, our group, I think we had 12 people, and we figured out a scheduling system.
Oh, for people to leave and come back and everything.
Exactly that, because Hall H is a monster. You got to be dedicated. You literally have to sleep over.
How early do people get in line for the Marvel?
For Saturday? Thursday. No joke.
Oh, so for the Saturday panel, you have to line up on Thursday.
Yeah, I've been going since way back in the day where you could quite honestly just walk up and maybe brave an hour-long line. Now you have to get in line.
I think Marvel Studios changed that. They
what's funny enough? I think the reason why it got so bad was because of Twilight.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very big following. Twilight has a very big following.
It was huge. And they were kind of contending at the same time with Harry Potter. So those two at the same time. Yeah. And then here comes Marvel and WBDC. And that's when it really started to get difficult.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, I honestly couldn't tell you. I do remember that I have a stack of comics here. And my first What If exposure was actually... this bad boy right here. And so I'm holding up What If Rogue possessed the power of Thor?
Oh my gosh.
This is a nightmare that no one needs to see because she's already strong and tough.
Exactly.
She's
that's what I was saying.
And so imagine her with Mjolnir and causing havoc. And it's very much like the cover. She kind of goes crazy
with it. Yeah.
So that was kind of my first exposure to it. I want to say this was in the 90s. Yeah, I'd say the 90s. And I saw it on the shelf at the comic shop, and I was like, I like Rogue. I'm going to pick this up.
Yeah.
And then from then, I kind of went backwards and forwards and picked up a few more that we'll talk about later. But yeah, I feel like the show is predominantly something that really introduced this concept to people. And also, it's interesting for people who have never thought of we could actually see these scenarios played out.
It's just every person's pipe dream kind of thing.
Right. And so, if you've watched the show or you're familiar with the concept at all, or you've paid attention to some of the MCU films, at the helm of all that is What If is the Watcher, who more or less is named Uatu. And he, in particular, was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and made his first appearance in Fantastic Four number 13, April 1963. Okay. And so, in tradition, I have one trading card of the Watcher from 1992. And so let's learn a little bit about him before we dive into the series. And so it says, the most awesome responsibility of any being in the cosmos belongs to the Watcher, sworn to only witness events, never influence them. The Watcher could not even take a hand during the universe-spanning battle for control of the all-powerful Infinity Gauntlet. Ageless and beyond human understanding, the Watcher perhaps feels regret for his solitary vigil, but whatever his true feelings, he stands silent as history unfolds, and he watches.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just funny because the Eternals trailer just came out, and like they're also not allowed to interfere,
right?
Unless but they're allowed to interfere unless the deviants come
right.
in.
And I think it was if it's not only a human or Terran ordeal, they can interfere
because the Celestials told them to,
right?
And it's like,
and so for Uatu in particular, his is an interesting concept as well. And we very briefly talked about him in another episode. And you were like, well, what does the Watcher do? And I was like,
he watches.
And yes, sadly, it's very true. And that's his role. But for Uatu, he's kind of got an interesting backstory in that the Watchers themselves, they're the oldest species in the universe. And so they're like the keepers of all time and knowledge. And so they're committed to observing and compiling all the knowledge and aspects of the universe and the happenings within it. And so the catalyst moment for them was, I guess they had gained information on how nuclear energy is, its properties and what it could do. And so they thought at the beginning of their stages, they thought, oh, well, if we imbue these what are they called, the silicons with this knowledge, it's kind of like cavemen and fire. You know what I mean? Like if you introduce the way of creating fire from rock and flint and all this stuff, like what could they do with that power? And so the Watchers themselves gave this information about nuclear energy to a species called the prosilicons, and they ultimately destroyed themselves.
Oh, jeez.
And so from that point on, the Watchers were like, oh, like, perhaps we shouldn't interfere with these things. And because they go in with good intent, and it ended up catastrophically. So from that point on, they were like, okay, we're gonna hang tight and just sit at the sidelines and let nature run its course.
Thing,
And so for Uatu, it's said that his father was actually one of those Watchers. Okay. And so Uatu's like his sort of goal in life is to see all of these multiple occurrences of different timelines and branches and all that stuff, hoping to find a scenario that what his father and those Watchers did actually ended up in the good way.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of like that Doctor Strange thing at Infinity War.
Yeah, yeah.
How many scenarios did he saw? Like 1 million. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Do you know the number?
14,605.
Is that really the number?
Yeah.
I feel like that is the number.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Geoffrey. So that number. So he's essentially going through all of those scenarios, trying to find the one event where it didn't end catastrophically. And that is his post as the Watcher.
Nice.
And so homeboy, he's on the moon. I think I've mentioned this before. It's the blue area of the moon, which is very pertinent to many different characters in the Marvel universe, in that not only the Inhumans have their kingdom there. Okay. I know you didn't watch the show, but
I know, yeah.
I hope they kind of revisit that one day.
Yeah.
But their kingdom is on the blue area of the moon. For the X-Men in the Phoenix Saga, Jean Grey and all of those happenings, she died in the blue area of the moon. It plays a big part in the comic books. But yeah, let's see. So the Watcher is defined as an altruist. So once again, he's like, he wants the good for all people. But he has violated his code and actually interfered. Okay. On some occasions. And it's kind of funny because it's like, oh, I cannot do it. I cannot. And then he interferes and it's like, you Come on. So I kind of wonder if this is only season 1 of the show that we're currently seeing.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're ever going to touch on any of this as far as he's concerned, because I think that, it's very Twilight Zone-y in that, like, the narrator in Twilight Zone never actually interferes, but he does like play fourth wall.
Yeah, he does for
in
sure.
some episodes,
Yeah.
Whether you're watching the new one or the old one. The old one is like one of my favorite things.
Yeah,
in the
no,
world.
I love the old Twilight Zone with Rod Sterling.
Rod Serling.
Serling.
Yeah, there's no T. I always think there's a T. And so let me just read off a few of his powers, because I feel like he's also, he's that silent type where you're not sure, like, how much power does this guy actually have? Mm-hmm. And so I have noted that this is a long laundry list.
Okay.
Possesses psionic abilities such as flight, telepathy, energy manipulation, power negating force field projection, illusion casting, appearance altering. So he's kind of like a shapeshifter.
Nice.
Time travel. So he can actually either time travel on his own, or he can bring a group or a person and time travel.
Oh, wow.
At his own will.
And
he doesn't have to conjure anything. He can just do it. And of course, immortality. Mm-hmm. So, he's old. He comes from generations before. And it's interesting because he kind of reminds me of Tinkerbell in a weird way, because he has immortality as long as he has the will to live.
Oh, okay.
So that's the catch. Yeah, that's the catch. It's like he can live forever as long as he himself
wants to live.
So if he just fell into a dark hole one day and he was like, you know what, I'm done, the Watcher would be gone.
That's kind of dark and heavy.
Very dark.
Wow, my gosh.
Yeah. And so, and you kind of think about it, seeing all of these different timelines and catastrophic events that happen, like at what point does it numb you?
Yeah.
In his case, he's already kind of seen the worst of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say like how catastrophic of an event do you have to see for you to step in and break your code?
Right.
Right.
Right. And so I imagine he's just on this sliding scale constantly of like, nope, I cannot.
Yeah.
No, I cannot.
It's like,
and then maintaining the idea of like, should I even bother doing this anymore? And he's like, yeah, I'm going to keep going. And so, very briefly, as briefly as I possibly can, we actually talked, we chatted a little bit about this previous storyline, Original Sin, where Nick Fury ended up being the Watcher.
Yes.
I mentioned it very, very briefly. But so to kind of bounce a little bit back to that, I mentioned the father, and that's kind of how, that's his meaning, his purpose for being the Watcher at that, as long as we've known until the recent times. But in Original Sin, the crazy thing is it starts out with Uatu and his eyes have been gouged out. And so there's this gigantic storyline, and you have to imagine Uatu is not like a normal sized human being like you and I. They're like kind of like how they are in Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Like huge.
They're kind of big. They
tall,
have they're like alien like. And so these eyeballs are like beach balls. They're huge.
Jeez.
And so there's this character Orb who's seeking the eyes. And Nick Fury has a parallel storyline to that. And you got to go read it if you want to read it. It's by Jason Aaron. He did one of he has done many books. And he was kind of like the it boy for many years, like 5 years ago. And he did Thor titles, and he's just a great writer all around. But, Uatu visited Nick Fury to witness him because he was the Infinity Formula that Nick Fury had was depleting, and he was seeking like what was happening to him. And they had a fight. They had a squabble. Like Nick Fury was just so in the moment of like, tell me what's wrong with me. And, he's the Watcher. He knows everything.
Yeah.
And Fury kills him. He kills the Watcher. And then he takes the second eye. And then it's found that these eyes are like cameras. Literally cameras. And they record everything that they have seen. So it's like the power of the multiverse and all of its knowledge in an eyeball. And
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so, unfortunately, Fury at the end of that story, Fury inherits the mantle and becomes
The Watcher.
The Watcher, but they title him the Unseen.
Okay.
And so, that was kind of a wild story. And we hadn't seen the Watcher in the comic books since that story, which was, like a couple years ago. I want to say 2016, but I could be wrong. But he was just very recently revived last year, actually, in a storyline called Empire, where the Avengers and other heroes came together to fight and prevent an incoming invasion of the Kree and the Skrull.
Oh.
And it was all led by a character named Hulkling.
Okay.
Who is Teddy Altman. He is... We're going to get into these family branches now. Family trees. Teddy Altman is the husband of Billy, who is Wiccan, who is Scarlet Witch's son.
Nice. Oh yeah, there it is.
So they're
Not
together.
confusing.
Yeah, they just got married very recently as well. But he is I believe the son of Mar-Vell, who is the original Captain Marvel.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So
okay,
Teddy
okay,
is. Yeah. So there's a whole other thing. But long story short, the Watcher is alive again. So
Nice.
good timing for that. That just happened last year. What kind of presence he's going to have in the comic books here on out? Who's to say?
Yeah.
Again, he watches
Everything. Sees everything.
Yeah, and what that means for Nick Fury, I think, I believe he sent him back to Earth and maybe reclaimed his mantle as the Watcher, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. And so from all of that, rewind, fast forward to Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and we had mentioned, Stan has obviously had the most appearances in the MCU. Mm-hmm. And, people joke, oh, he's the Watcher. And actually, he has a name, and he's the Watcher Informant.
Nice.
Because he's playing this character.
Yeah.
Who then reports
to the
Watchers. Yeah. So he's actually kind of like a character of sorts that's like uploading the information.
Love that.
To the Watchers.
I love that.
And so from then, we hadn't seen... That was our first iteration of the Watchers in the MCU.
In live action.
Yeah, until now. And I believe those three are... I don't even think that was Uatu. I think that was Uatu's father and two of his cohorts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's a theory. I don't know. But now we see Uatu in the beginning of every Disney...
every episode.
Of What If. And so that brings us to the modern age. And so, of course, he's voiced by Geoffrey Wright. Jeff and I were actually talking about Jeffrey.
You lost me. I was like, wait, who are you actually talking about?
Jeffrey with a J.
There it is.
We were talking about Geoffrey Wright just before the show, and how his voice is so the presence that his voice has, and it's very clear why he was chosen as the Watcher. He's not quite a Morgan Freeman, but not quite a Liam Neeson, but he
just has his form of bravado, grandiose.
Right. Yeah.
Voice.
Yeah, I agree. And are you familiar at all with his other voice work? I have three in particular that I love, and I have to mention them. But
man, if you say it, I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah.
So, not even voice work, but in Sandman he plays Destiny. Okay. Sandman is Neil Gaiman, probably his most famous work.
Oh, okay.
And that's a more current thing. And then he was also, of course, in Batman. He was Commissioner Gordon and Batman himself in various games and shows. I think. I don't know about the shows. In games, I'm pretty sure. And of course, speaking of games, I'm a The Last of Us fan, and he plays Isaac in the second game.
Okay.
Who is the leader of the WLF.
Okay.
And he's basically the guy that you just hate.
Nice.
He's the ultimate enemy in that game, and
he's also in
he's incredible.
Westworld, right?
Yes, he is. He's a very accomplished actor.
His voice and his acting is top tier.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so it's nice to kind of see him bleed into animation more and more, or games more and more in pop culture.
Voiceover work.
Voiceover work. His voiceover work is great. And so that brings us to the episodes. So by the time that y'all listen to this, we'll be 3 episodes deep. We're only going to talk about episodes 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So spoiler alert for those who aren't caught up yet, I guess. But also, it's worth saying, and I've mentioned this before, that the show does not correlate to anything in particular in the comics. And the comics is very much an anthology series, just like the show should be, more or less. And you do see recurring characters, but they're not playing the same character. So even though we're going to see, like, for instance, our first subject is going to be Captain Carter, even though we obviously seem to see Peggy in another episode, it's not necessarily going to be the same Peggy.
Yeah.
It's that version of Captain Carter, different branch, if you will. And so, did you know that Captain Carter was, before our conversation, did you know that she was actually from the comics at all?
I think so, yeah. I think I've heard that.
Yeah. And you know what's even funnier is that the comics were not her first appearance.
Really?
Really. And so this is an interesting factoid because this kind of frightens me a little because Marvel is so expansive as far as the universe goes. And so, of course, there are Marvel games.
Yes.
And so I was addicted to this game when it first came out. It came out in 2013. It was called Marvel Puzzle Quest.
Oh.
And it's like a bejeweled candy.
Oh, okay. Candy Crush
it's
kind of
kind of
thing.
like Candy Crush, but it's Marvel superheroes, and you're playing your team versus another team of 3 characters that you choose versus the CPU or whoever. And Captain Carter was actually introduced in 2016 in Marvel Puzzle Quest.
Interesting.
Right. That's a very strange avenue to introduce a character that didn't exist anywhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
Nowhere else. And they actually just, I believe, as of 2 weeks ago, maybe the debut week of the show, they just added that version of Captain Carter. So now there's a Captain Carter and then a what if Captain Carter in the game. And, of course, you know how in-game purchases and all that stuff work. I'm sure that's playing into it really well. But she was created by Jay Sai, Amanda Clark, and Paige I knew I was going to mess it up. Paige Petoruto?
Sounds right.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so, kudos to them because that's freaking awesome. Now, for the comic book version of Captain Carter, she didn't come along until 2018.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So she's, again, very, very recent. The most iconic kind of visual of her is a cover that Dave Marquez drew for Exiles #3. And that Peggy Carter hails from Earth 86315. And so that's basically, if you look it up, it's Captain Carter became Captain. She got the serum instead of Steve. It's the story that we have come to know in the show. And so, what were your thoughts on episode 1?
I enjoyed it. I mean, well, obviously it's because I love that it's the original characters voicing them, which is always great. Some sort of
Chris Evans.
some sort of authenticity and familiarity for us.
For sure.
It's awesome because it's like, you get to see like these characters in a different light, obviously bearing the question, what if?
Yep.
And after seeing it, you're like, wow, like, I wonder how that would look live action. Like, what if Haley Atwell did actually did all that?
I feel like she would do it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. I love how it plays. It's literally the exact same storyline from the movie, whatever it's pulling from. Yeah. But it's just like this one little switch happened.
And that's what I kind of loved about Jeffrey Wright portraying the Watcher in that, because he even inserts himself as like, and that is the decision that changed the course. Like, as
I love that.
And so immediately.
It's like, it's the same old story. It's just like one little thing is flipping the story 180 kind of thing.
It's so great. And I kind of, as much as I would love to see these like live action, I do appreciate the fact that they are animated. And also, anyone who's talked to me about this show knows how much I love the animation for it, just because it's so clean and so dynamic, and
unique.
It's so unique.
For that.
And it's just a very quality type of animation that it's consistent, and it's very attractive to the eye. And I think the resemblances to their actors are great, and it's just it's kind of stunning in its own way. It's very stunning, and of course, props to Ryan Meinerding, who's like, again, one of my favorite creators in the space, and so I believe he's the visual art lead for the series, and he's done many contributions to the MCU in general. So, he and his team have been like crushing this series. I think it's fantastic. That scene of that straight up streamlined scene of Peggy going through I don't know, was it the hallway or whatever? And she's just fighting all the
Yes.
Hydra. That was so reminiscent of the Daredevil, the infamous Daredevil scene.
I think I thought of that too, and I was like, oh wow, okay.
Yeah, and that in particular was something I would love to see in live action because it was so cool. I was like, oh my
Yeah,
god, that would
man.
be the Daredevil hallway scene.
It would look so cool, yeah.
Yeah.
But I also think it's like, I mean, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot of money to do it live action.
Exactly.
So it's like,
Exactly.
oh, let's just animate it, make it a series, and it's like, yeah, it works too. Like,
It works
I
perfectly
think,
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, of course, Steve Rogers and the Hydra I can't say it. Hot. Hydra Smasher.
Hydra Stomper.
Stomper?
Hydra Stomper.
Is it Stomper?
Yeah.
Shoot, see, I like flubbed myself up. And I'm collecting these digital cards too, and I have like 12.
Dai is on a whole NFT
I am
digital collectible thing right now.
Every time I acquire a new NFT, I have to tell somebody in how much I loathe myself for owning them because I was like, nah, that's a dumb idea. And then every week or every day I'm checking in to get my mystery box.
Yeah.
And so let me look up the Hydra Stomper in my collection. And I've got a couple of those.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, again, it's a miracle that I didn't remember it because I'm staring at it every day. Yeah,
it's
so I have
like-
a couple of those. I have a
like-
couple of him. Oh, it is the Hydra Stomper.
Because it's cool. Because it's cool that you have it, but you're like, it's digital.
It's
but,
digital, I can't
But there's
hold
there's no tangible like card. You're like, ah.
And imagine how beautiful this. I'll post it, but imagine how beautiful that card would be.
I know that'd be.
If
that'd
I
be
could actually
sick.
hold it.
I know.
And so I've got quite a few from the What If series already. This is the Topps Marvel Universe trading
Yeah,
card
and it's a
system.
tops too.
And yeah, it's killing me. Anyway, so it was cool to see that version of not only the Mark I made by Mr. Stark in that era, and then for Steve to kind of be in it on top of it.
And I
you know?
love that they when it came to that train scene.
Yeah.
I love how they made
yeah.
like they made Steve being the one that dies.
Yeah, and all of the little Easter eggs in between.
And Bucky's
with Bucky,
okay.
yeah.
And it's like I was like, that's great because like.
And that's the crazy thing that kind of drives me nuts is that these are stories that you know that you've probably watched over and over and over again, and yet, at least for me, I was not able to predict. I wasn't going to predict any of that. I was just like, oh, what's happening? I didn't even know. I'll tell you this, because, you know, I don't watch anything after the final trailer. I didn't watch any of the little teasers, and I accidentally saw something of Peggy riding the back of the Hydra Stomper, right? And then, like, somebody had wrote, or in the caption it said, like, Peggy Carter and Steve Rogers reunited again. I was like, damn, Steve's inside of it? Like, I didn't know. And so I was like, oh, bummer. Like, that would have been cool for me to, like, not, the reveal would have been there. But again, even then, like, even as familiar as we are with these characters, to watch the show and then still not know exactly what's going to go down is I think that's awesome. Because it's, like, just riddled with what ifs. What if Bucky does fall off? And then Steve's, like, you know, like, you just don't know what's going to happen.
I love also how they still kept the romance between Peggy
them.
and Steve.
Yeah.
Even if it, like, he doesn't have the serum, his body didn't change.
Right.
And I love that. I was just like, okay, they kept that and like. And then she was the one making the sacrifice this time.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, it's amazing.
So good. Like, you still owe me a dance lesson. That was the change from instead of dance. And yeah, I was talking to another friend about that and how I really appreciate the fact that it's kind of like proof that it was always the essence of Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
It wasn't Captain America and the serum.
Steve.
It was Steve that Peggy was ultimately who she was in love with. And so I love that because I'm a big old, what do they call them? Steggy. Steggy Stan. I'm a Steggy Stan.
Steggy Stan. Steggy.
So I love Steve and Peggy. And, you know, it's that kind of sentiment that is it's carried over within other issues, like comic book issues of What If, for instance. Another one here. What if Spider-Man had rescued Gwen Stacy? And so this is a big one.
Yikes.
I guess I can talk about it right now. But essentially, you know, this is the story where, you know, if you're familiar with Spider-Man at all, or you saw a couple of the movies, she falls off the bridge. Spider-Man tries to save her, neck goes snap.
One of like the most like grueling on-screen
Yes,
deaths I've
this
seen.
like I have to save the big one for her episode because it's a huge story. Anyway, in the What If version, he saves her. It's great.
Ooh.
It's good. They're good. Like he does it proper. He does it 2 hands. He pulls her. He doesn't snap or nothing, and he pulls her up perfectly right. She's like, "Oh, thank you," and then he reveals himself. I'm Spider-Man. She's like, "Oh," because like if you know anything about Gwen Stacy and the Silver Age comics of Spider-Man, is that she was constantly like, "Oh, Spider-Man's doing this," and Spider-Man, is he a man of cell? I don't know, because her father was stressed, you know, and pressed, and so he just comes out and says, "I'm Spider-Man," and she's actually okay with it. She's like, "Great." They get married.
Whoa.
Like happily ever after.
Wow, what a different turn of events.
I almost don't want to spoil the ending, but at the end, he still goes to jail because of J. Jonah Jameson nails him because of all the things that he did as Spider-Man.
Wow.
So it's kind of like Twilight Zone in that not everything is really happily ever after, like we see in episode 1 with Peggy and Steve, and how you think, oh, maybe they'll actually get have their timeline, and it's like, nah. She still goes away. It's still muddled, but that's the trick. Yeah.
She's the one that stays alive.
Yeah, right? and I feel like that's kind of, that calls back to kind of Uatu's like his own thing about finding his father's happy ending. Mm-hmm. Like, does it even exist at that point? Yeah. And it's kind of like, oh, does a happy ending really ever exist for Steve and Peggy? And I mean, we kind of see that in Endgame. It's a little different story.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like you mentioned, Bucky and the Howling Commandos even, I will never get tired of different versions of them bursting through the door.
Yeah.
that so key scene. So we saw it first in Captain America First Avenger, then we saw it again in Falcon and Winter Soldier with John Walker. And then now we're seeing it with Peggy and the Howling Commandos. And so it goes without saying, like, What If is full of Easter eggs.
Yeah,
left and right.
Literally all of them. Yeah.
All of them. Anything you could possibly imagine. And so before we get into episode 2, we have a comment from a listener, Ariel. Woo. Hi, Ariel, on Instagram, who simply said, "T'Challa as Star-Lord destroyed me."
Yeah.
And I mean, like, dang,
I agree.
Dang. Like that
that episode was
fire.
Crazy.
Fire.
Yeah. I was like, this is really good.
Yeah. And and I had written on my notes, because, I like to keep tabs on stuff. Literally, there's no story of this. There's no source material.
It's a brand new original idea.
Completely new idea that they brought to the table.
That's great.
And I love it so much because it is very distinctly, again, What If the series is very MCU leaning, whereas the comic books is obviously comic book. And so to see them go that deep with T'Challa and then Star-Lord and just go, boop.
Yeah, and it makes sense too. I was like, I wonder how they're gonna have T'Challa be the one that picks up, gets picked up.
Yeah,
and then you're like, oh, that makes sense. And it's just, and it's hilarious too, because Yondu's just like, how do you think this looks like this?
It's so good. Like everything that they called back to. It's kind of like you've got to wonder what their storyboarding looks like and what their outline. It's like, okay, they have every scene from Guardians of the Galaxy.
It's a whole different pathway for T'Challa as Star-Lord. I'm like, oh, this is just totally different.
Yeah.
This is like not even, it's the same kind of structure of the original Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's like a completely different path.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, not to poo-poo on one of my faves too hard, but it's very interesting to see how different just changing that one role affected so many people and the universe. That universe,
totally different.
Like if you just think, like even from the get-go when Korath encounters,
I was
T'Challa,
not expecting that. Was not expecting that reaction at all.
Yeah, when he did the who, I was like, oh, here we go again. And then he's like, instead of like, let's get him, he's like, oh my god,
I'm so sorry,
I'm a huge fan. Like fanboying over this guy.
Classic Star-Lord. So good.
And then the sounds and then the tools that he uses are like identical. So it's like everything is the same except for the character himself and also his purpose and status within that group because like, you know, in the films, Star-Lord is like reluctantly there. He's constantly trying to get away from them. They're constantly playing cat and mouse, whereas in T'Challa's version, it's very much more like
he's a hero.
He's a hero.
Yeah,
he's a
like,
celebrated hero.
Like, yeah, they're just known.
Cha-cha.
Can we also mention good guy Thanos?
I know.
That I have never been thrown off by something so much. I literally was just like,
his face, Geoffrey's face. He's like,
what? I was like, because who brought it up? Korath brought it up. He was like, how did you stop the Mad Titan? And you just see this big arms be like, he didn't. And I was just like, what the hell is that? And he just like T'Challa, and it's Josh Brolin's voice. And I'm like, this is weird. Like,
this is crazy.
He's not menacing at all.
They're really playing on your senses too, because like you have in your brain established Josh Brolin's voice is supposed to scare me. He decimated half the planet. And then yet what if is like, oh my gosh, he is really likable. Oh my gosh, he's still thinking about genocide, but not. What is the line?
That sounds a lot like genocide.
And
he's like, no. What did he say?
What did he say? I can't remember.
I was like, at random though.
At random.
And they're like, it's still genocide.
I know. Oh my gosh. And yet it's, you know, of course it's a cartoon, but you know, it's just so, again, they're flipping the script in a great way.
I don't know if you've noticed when Thanos was holding off the guards for the ship, that scream he does, where he's like getting beat up by the Black Order, I think that scream is from when he's getting put under by Mantis. Oh, like it sounded very familiar.
I was thinking too, and you know, like, sorry we didn't look this up, but I was thinking too about how many sound bites they may have actually pulled from the actual films, instead of actually having somebody
having them recorded,
like you know, especially like in Kurt Russell's, you know,
one line,
like did they really bring him in or did they reuse it? But
it was just crazy. The Nebula looks different.
I'm gonna say it again, and I said this to Geoffrey before. I think because in the comics, Nebula has had hair before. Long, ravenous black hair. Black hair, sorry. It's not hungry. And for her to have hair in What If wasn't so jarring to me. The fact that it was yellow was like, what? Why is she blonde? And I think, honestly, it's a callback to Guardians of the Galaxy 2 when Star-Lord is boarding the ship on Ego and he's like, what's Smurfette doing here? Because she looks
like a Smurf.
Like Smurfette. She looks like, all you need to do is plop a white hat on that girl and she looks like Smurfette. So I don't know if that was intentional, but Karen Gillan as Nebula in that series, I mean, I love what she does with that character.
And like,
it's so good.
All those characters are, and then the Collector, I was just like, okay, why is he buff?
Chad Collector. Tumblr calls him Chad Collector.
I was like, why is he like unnecessarily buff right now?
He looks like Akuma out of Street Fighter.
Yes, I agree.
Oh my gosh.
So good.
So good. And so, you know, with the series, like, 25 MCU actors have returned to the roles. Now, again, whether they've returned or they're just using sound bites, or in some cases, like using a line or two. I mean, we're not sure, but that was announced at SDCC in 2019 as well. And so I wonder, because there are still characters that have not been confirmed the voice actors for. And so I wonder if in cases like Gamora, for instance, who hasn't been listed, like, did they end up getting Zoe Saldana? They haven't said anything. Yeah. I mean, maybe we'll know by the time this episode drops, but I wonder who the rest of the filler cast is, because, you know, with Captain America, not Captain America, but Steve Rogers in particular, he's voiced by Josh Keaton, who's done many iterations of Spider-Man in the animated universe. And so it's nice to see these voice actors portraying characters that may or may not be their usual, but...
Same thing with Drax. I mean, Drax is done by a different person in the series. And it was great.
And, and it's kind of like the video games too, like Ultimate Alliance. A lot of those voice actors sound so much like their predecessors. It's kind of insane. So I'm curious to see who ends up popping up as which character.
Because there's so much more.
Yeah. And also, like, I wonder if there's barely any because 25 people came back, including Chadwick, which is insane.
And he's in three more episodes.
3 more, I know. I can't wait.
So good.
And so there are 9 episodes slated for this first season. And, of course, the jargon that they're using and saying season 1 leads me to believe they will be ongoing series. They have a lot of stories that they can just flip. So which is so wild because that essentially means if, with the MCU and how many movies we have existing and how many they're only going to cover in this first season, God, like who knows what they're going to do in season 2 and 3 and moving forward. And so, have you looked at the episodes coming up?
I haven't. I just seen like the trailers and stuff. And
I accidentally saw them. I know which one is last. Well, I know which ones are coming in what order, but I didn't look at the details. I did not.
Nice.
I'm like, no.
I don't want to know.
I don't want to know. I want to be delightfully surprised each and every time.
Same. I might have to because I'm going to Hawaii this next week, so I might have to watch it when I'm over there on my phone.
You're gonna be on your phone,
probably
laying back
it
on the beach, being like, "Oh, what if dropped?" And so, that's kind of to be continued until next Wednesday, and the next 6 Wednesdays after that. And God knows what we're gonna see in that next month and a half.
I did see the pic of Spider-Man wearing Doctor Strange's cape.
The cape. Oh, coat. I was just saying coat.
Wait, the cloak of levitation.
Yes.
There it is. Sorry, no capes.
No capes.
So that's interesting. I'm glad they got Spider-Man to be a part of this.
Yeah.
Because I know that's I know anytime Spider-Man pops up in a Marvel Disney property, it's very whoa. Like you did a lot.
Now, do you think Tom Holland got to voice him?
I'm gonna say I want to say yes. Just because I know Tom loves playing Spider-Man.
He loves it too so much.
But I wouldn't be surprised if he's not.
Yeah, same. Sadly.
Or unless they get
Well, I thought they were just gonna pull in Josh Keaton again.
Oh, I was gonna say, what if they get Yuri?
Oh, Yuri Lowenthal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be actually kind of cool.
That'd be great too.
I love Yuri.
I'm not mad at that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that'd be awesome. And so, I wanted to dive in back into the comics, until we have more episodes to talk about. But so there are quite a few instances where a what if book actually came true, at least in the comic book verse. And so I named one of them already. It was what if Spider-Man joined the Fantastic Four, and he did twice.
Nice.
So that's kind of funny. And he donned an outfit that I like to call the Oreo outfit. Okay. Because it's black and white.
Black and white.
But he's cream with cookie. So it's all white,
nice.
But black accents, which is really pretty sick. And I think, yes, it's in the Spider-Man game.
Oh, okay.
It's that white suit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I forgot the Future Foundation suit.
Okay.
And then another one of the favorites that we're gonna see in the next year or two. What if Jane Foster had found the Hammer of Thor? And that actually happened, and it became a story. Once again, penned by Jason Aaron and drawn by Russell Dodderman. Another one. What if Hulk had the brain of Bruce Banner? So again, that was a what if concept. Yeah. And the funny thing is that we see Smart Hulk.
We do.
He's in Infinity War.
Yeah.
And he's wearing a cardigan and being cute. And saying, what is it? When they're taking the picture with the Russo's kids?
Hulk out. Oh, yeah. Hulk out.
And then what if Spider-Man had not married Mary Jane? And so
interesting.
I think I have that one here. That's a big one because that actually turned into a huge arc that many Spider-Man Mary Jane purists loathe because it's called One More Day, and basically they made a deal with Mephisto.
Of course.
Ding 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 ding. Mephisto to save a dying Aunt May. And essentially what he did was that he bartered them. That's what you get when you put trade and barter put together. He bartered with them for their love, essentially.
Got it.
And he's like, I will undo everything and I will let her live, but you got to give me that whole energy of yours. you'll never remember this happened. You won't remember anything that led up to this. You'll just never have been together. And so he untangled their entire like history.
Oh my God.
At least romantically. And so that was huge. They've since retconned parts of that, but you know, they're fine now. Don't worry. And then, which brings me to the first issue in numerical order that I actually own, which was, what if Elektra had lived? And so she came back, and you see that even in the 2002 Daredevil film with Batfleck.
Oh yeah.
And Jennifer
my
Garner,
gosh.
which led to the Elektra movie. And so I wanted to talk about my mini stash here. So
It's a lot. It's a lot, guys.
it's not a lot. They're only 10.
A lot for me.
And so I pulled these out of my boxes. And so I have, let's see, real quick. What if Elektra had lived? What if Legion had killed Magneto?
Jesus.
Do you know who Legion is?
I don't believe
So you didn't watch that Fox Hulu FX show then?
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah, because there was that show that Dan Stevens and
I may have heard of
Aubrey
it.
Plaza were in.
Okay.
And that was the character.
Okay.
He's Professor X's son. He's essentially the most powerful mutant of all time.
Snaps. Okay.
And so he kills Magneto, and yeah. As I mentioned before, what if Rogue possessed the power of Thor? A big one, so big that they did it twice. What if Phoenix rose again?
Oh my gosh.
Spoiler alert, she did. It was called the Dark Phoenix Saga. What if Spider-Man had rescued Gwen Stacy?
Mm-hmm.
You'll see a trend here. What if Spider-Man had not married Mary Jane, like I
Okay.
just mentioned?
Nice.
What if the world knew that Daredevil is blind?
Oh, whoa. Okay, that's
It's
interesting.
a very
Wow.
interesting one. What if Blink of Generation X had not died? So she was a big catalyst in the Generation X books.
Okay.
That's when Banshee and Emma Frost led a team of young mutants. It was a great series in the 90s. And she was kind of like a cornerstone character, and you saw her in Days of Future Past. Yes. And so she was very powerful, and anyway, I loved her. What if Aunt May died instead of Uncle Ben?
Oh, that's a
big
good
one.
one.
Yeah. Now this one's funny because it looks on the cover, it very much resembles what we might be seeing from Spidey. But what if Spider-Man had never become a crime fighter, and he has a cape?
Oh, wow.
So I
feel
wonder-
like I wonder if they pulled from that.
I feel like they may have pulled from this issue. What if the Amazing Spider-Man had married the Black Cat?
Oh, that's interesting.
Interesting.
That would be very
And
interesting.
then last but not least, the X-Men ask, what if Phoenix had not died? And again, they did it again.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the same story remixed, and it's another dark
Oh my
story.
gosh.
So these are the ones that I have. And of course, there are tons more on Marvel Unlimited. So yeah.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of
so many stories to
twisty
be told.
remixes. I know. And so that's why I'm just like, oh, what are they going to do? And imagine if they did jump into X-Men territory now. Imagine.
It'd be a solid like roll into intro for be like, oh, like this is what X-Men could possibly look like in
Yeah.
the MCU.
That'd be crazy.
I mean, because the first X-Men property that's going to be is the Fantastic Four, right?
Yeah. So we think. I mean, unless you count Deadpool.
I mean, they announced it, and so that's the
Yeah.
only one they announced. So I
Yeah.
mean, who knows when that's gonna get announced?
Yep. And so, I wanted to shout out listener Billy actually shared his favorite or his first What If comic, and it was what if Wolverine had been Lord of the Vampires during Inferno.
Jeez.
And so Inferno is a huge arc back in the day, I think the 80s. I mentioned her in a previous episode, Madeline Pryor, who was a clone of Jean Grey.
Okay.
Basically, it's baby Cable. It's a lot of baby Cable and demons and stuff. And so the Lord of the Vampires is actually a character named Varney. Varney, I don't know how you pronounce that. And he, long story short, he served in a cult of the Darkholders.
Oh.
I know you know that word.
Okay.
And he was later transformed into a vampire.
Of course, like all people do.
Yeah, by the Darkhold itself.
Jesus, man, all this talk of Darkhold.
I know.
I'm like,
And allegedly was the last surviving vampire created in Atlantis.
Wow.
before the Great Cataclysm and ruled over Earth's vampires. And so that what if in particular just kind of, what if Wolverine had been that character?
That's insane.
And so that's another scenario where you have this like powerful regenerating character that can't die
basically.
as an undead. It's kind of wild.
Is that like counterintuitive at that point?
Yeah, exactly. Like kind of like Rogue and Thor. Like
undead.
how do you?
don't know.
Yikes! Because even Thor can still be wounded.
Get beat up. Yeah, it just takes a
Yeah.
lot for him to get hurt.
Right, but imagine
still.
it like rogue powered, and she's absorbing people, and like woof, 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 woof. And so we got a couple of some what ifs from the crowd.
Let's
here.
hear it out. Yeah,
You ready? You ready
yeah.
to talk, buddy? Okay. First one from Patreon patron Andrew.
Okay.
What if
Yes.
Iron Man had killed Cap and Bucky at the end of Civil War?
At the end of Civil War?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that would be.
What would have happened?
What's that comic you want to see? What is
Oh,
it?
Superior Iron Man. Dude, that was my answer.
Just turns,
That was my answer.
Just turns
Like,
dark as hell.
He turns dark as hell. He turns into Superior Iron Man, and that's it. Like, the Avengers are disassembled. He
Yeah.
goes back, and you have to imagine, like, everybody would be against
I would
him.
imagine,
He
like, yeah.
killed Captain
like
America.
the media presence would be
Oh,
insane
yeah.
to be like,
They would eat him alive.
like Tony Stark killed Steve Rogers,
Yeah.
Captain America,
Right.
the face of America, basically.
Yeah.
And it's like,
America's ass.
whoa, Jesus, like that's pretty intense. Like that's
Because what happened? What's the film after Civil War? Is it Avengers? No. Come on, Jeff, you got this.
well,
no,
Civil
maybe
War
you don't.
came out in 2016, so then the movies that came after Civil War in 2017
So
or
Black
end of
Panther?
well, Black Panther was beginning of 2017,
Yeah.
right? And then Doctor Strange also came out in 2017.
So all that, see, that could have all been affected. Could have all been affected. What
Maybe
if
not so much Black Panther,
Yeah.
because no,
No?
but maybe Doctor Strange. But I mean,
But what if when they became
Infinity
open?
War would be a totally different
But
story.
what if they became open and they became the provider of technology instead of Stark Technologies?
Oh.
And then Superior Iron Man would just probably
just get
decimate
crazy.
everybody.
Yeah.
Like
he'd go
have a war.
rogue. He'd
Yeah.
go crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Infinity War would be a totally different.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, I wonder if he would even be conspiring with Thanos at that point. You know what I mean?
Because they know each other. They know of each other.
Like, can you imagine if he's the one like getting the stones and he has that gauntlet?
Oh,
and
Iron
he's-
Man?
yeah, and he's
like
fighting-
he's the big baddie
And
instead
he's
of...
fighting Thanos and the Black Order with the previous Avengers and the Dora Milaje
Jeez,
and
wow, that would
all
be...
of the.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That would be crazy.
But also, a world without Captain America and Bucky is not a world I want to live in.
Yeah. I think it's like impossible.
Yeah, this is why Steve Rogers is on the moon, guys. And from Twitter, from ironically a listener named Steve, he asks, "What if Iron Man didn't get the stones and Thanos got to snap again?"
That's it. That's the end.
That's
That's
it.
the end
That's what I said.
of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like,
The end. It was nice while it lasted.
yeah.
Yeah, there would be nothing.
Because what Thanos wanted to do with the stones at the end of Endgame was like destroy this universe and create a new one. So it's
Yeah.
like, oh well,
Yeah.
yeah, roll credits. Like that's
Roll
it.
credits, and then it's black, and then it fades in, and it's baby Thanos,
Yeah, and that's
and
it.
then a new universe. Like, oh,
Like, there's no no multiverse would have gotten
created.
created
Yeah,
or
'cause
discovered.
there would be no.
Yeah, that's
Oh
just
my
it.
God.
The cinematic universe just ends.
There's no Sylvie to shake the
That's
tree.
that's just hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
If you think about it, I would have loved to see that because when Thanos was describing like what he was going to do, I'm going to shred this universe
Yeah.
to its last atom, and from
Start it
scratch
again.
start a new one that knows not what it has lost, but only what it has gained.
You should see my face right now. Okay, you know that a little too well.
Born out of blood. And you won't be alive to tell them. Yeah.
Oh my god, I'm frightened. Oh my god,
Yeah.
that's great. Oh, that's so good. Now I pose this question to you now. What are some what ifs that you wonder about?
I know. Yeah, I was thinking about this. Oof. What if one that came immediately to mind when I was thinking about? I was like, what if Doctor Strange never got into a car accident?
Ooh. Now, do you think that somebody else would have been like the chosen one?
And who else? Who? Because then he would just be a surgeon.
He would just be a surgeon.
But like the ancient one said, like it's inevitable that he's supposed to be the best of us. Yeah. You're about 5 years too early and whatever. What if Stephen Strange never got into a car accident?
Yeah. I wonder if there's an actual. I feel like that could have been an issue.
Oh, what if Civil War never happened? What if Tony and Steve never had their differences?
But do you then think that then they wouldn't have disagreed on the Sokovia Accords and they just would have like, yeah, sure, we'll work for the government?
So what if they agreed on the what if they agreed on the Sokovia Accords? But it depends on which side. You know, like what if Tony was like, yeah, you're right, Steve, I'm not signing these.
I'm not signing it. We're not going to be government oriented.
Or what if Steve says, you're right, Tony, maybe we should be under the government. And it's like, oh, okay.
Can you imagine that? Wow.
Yeah.
We see that threaded all the way up until Black Widow and how it is and how they're on the run, on the lam.
If Tony went on Steve's side, Infinity War, I think the saga would end at Infinity War. There would be no end game. Yeah. I think they'd come together and defeat Thanos.
Interesting.
At the end of Infinity War. Because they fought him separately, right?
Yeah,
so it's like...
That's true, huh? Ooh.
But then on the flip side, if Cap joined Tony's side of saying we do need to be under government supervision, I just feel like the Avengers would just fall apart.
You know, that said, I'm going to twist it up a little more. What if that all happened and then at the end of Black Widow, instead of departing, Yelena went with Nat and Nat brought her to go find the rest of the team and the widows were there too.
Oh, that would be
smashing.
What? Oh, here's another one. What if Clint was the one to die on Vormir?
Ooh.
Or what if it was just someone else that did because I always wonder.
Yeah.
Who let Clint and Nat be the ones to go to Vormir?
Wasn't it?
Besides, the writers
but didn't Cap assign them?
It's not even that, but when they were explaining the stones and where the soul stone was, someone was like what's Vormir? And then Nebula's like it's a planet. It's where Thanos killed my sister. Yeah. And then Paul Rudd was like not it. Yeah. So it's like. So you gotta know that someone had to tell them that you need to sacrifice somebody to get the stone. So I'm like, who sent Nat and Clint?
But did they know that? Did they know that?
I don't think they did.
I don't think they knew that.
I mean,
she knew that she died there, but she didn't know how.
Obviously for story purposes, of course, but I'm like, no one told them. No one was like, you know what? Hey, by the way,
only one of you's coming back.
Yeah, no. So it's like. Either it's like, what if Clint did it, or what if another Avenger went? But then again, for the story, those two going makes the most sense.
Yeah, weird, right?
Yeah,
I do wonder what would happen then. Clint wouldn't.
Here's another one I just thought of. What if Nebula was a superior sister rather than Gamora? What if their power dynamic
I feel like
changed?
That might be a one too, and you kind of see that in the Gamora and Nebula book. The novel.
Yeah, because Gamora's always the one winning the fights as a child.
Yeah, but what's interesting in the novel, they again it's kind of a prequel of sorts where it's stories of them before their time in the MCU, and so Nebula even says in the narrative she's like Gamora was always kind of the superior daughter, but Thanos always equipped her better. He gave her better weapons. He gave her advantages to kind of. Just ruin Nebula from the get-go. He wanted to just make her the lesser.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of interesting theory. What if indeed he had equipped her better and didn't try to just sabotage her?
Yeah.
I can't even see that.
I have one more. now it's just rolling off my.
Let's go. Let's hear it.
What if in Iron Man? What if Iron Man he didn't privatize his selling of his weapons, because how in Iron Man 2, right? He was like, you can't have my property because I just privatized world peace, whatever. Yeah. What if he was just what if he did continue to sell his weapons to everybody? Yeah, and it was just whatever, screw it.
Oh my God. I almost feel again, any of those routes, he just would have been he would have turned into Superior Iron Man one way or another. Oh my god.
What if Captain America had like those John Walker personality traits, where it was never about like freedom, but he was just kind of like, what if Captain America had Peacemaker traits?
Before or after Serum, though?
After Serum.
Okay, because I feel like he would never have gotten the Serum.
Yeah.
Peacemaker traits.
Yeah. Because Peacemaker is basically like Captain America.
Yeah, no. And the
but
character
like
from The Boys,
way.
too. Yeah. But, I mean, he would be Peacemaker. He would be Peacemaker without...
But Chris Evans, though.
But Chris Evans.
Chris Evans being just super violent.
And a toilet helmet.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So many.
Ooh, that would be... He would have been Hail Hydra Cap.
What if they did that? Even though that's an actual comic book run.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like Dark Cap.
Yeah.
Cap is too pure for this world.
Or let's see what else. What else can I think of?
Yeah,
off
come
the
on.
top
I like your ideas.
of the head.
The Nebula Gamora one is really good. I like that a lot.
What if Wakanda never went into hiding, and they just built Wakanda, and they never hid in plain sight.
Yeah. That could have been a game changer for sure.
For the whole world.
For the entire world,
vibranium would have been accessible to everywhere.
For everybody.
And would have just like an all-out turf war.
Or do you think it would be a turf war?
I think so.
Like oil.
Because you saw it in the Black Panther movie, saying like, we need to get our resources out to the people who are struggling. They could use this.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, what if, and you saw like the results of it. Yeah, people would just attack Wakanda and be like, we need your vibranium.
We might see something like that in the episode with Killmonger and Iron Man.
That's true, yeah, because Stark Industries.
We don't know where that goes. I haven't seen a lick of that one. Like,
that one's going to be funny.
All we see from that is that opening
is Killmonger
part.
saving
Tony
Stark.
and that's it. Yeah, we haven't seen anything else. So that's going to be wild.
So, God, I can keep them rolling. What if Sony never allowed Spider-Man in the MCU?
That is my nightmare. Can you imagine?
What if Spider-Man never appeared in Civil War?
Oh my God.
I mean, I don't...
Oh my God. Oh my God. Can you imagine? But I feel like we wouldn't even have the films that we have now. Like, we would maybe have had an Amazing Spider-Man 3. Maybe.
What if...
There would be no Tom Holland.
What if Tony Stark... Okay, then on top of that, what if Tony Stark wasn't the one that takes Peter under his wing? And let's say it's Cap that takes him under his wing.
Ooh, I like that. But then he wouldn't have the tech. So he would be sad Peter sewing his own suit like Andrew Garfield in Amazing Spider-Man.
Or what if Doctor Strange took Peter under his wing?
Ooh.
And he learns the multiverse. And he's able to have a sling ring.
I mean, that might be where the hot toy is from.
Sling ring Spidey.
Or
imagine.
I wonder what... I mean, I don't want to get too spoilery there, but yeah, I wonder... Ooh, that's a good one too.
Sling ring Spidey, that'd be cool.
I just want to see 10 minutes of Tom Holland
magic.
Bugging Benedict Cumberbatch.
Magic with a cake.
That's my favorite thing about the Star-Lord hot toy that I have from Infinity War is that he comes with the Doctor Strange platforms so you can step on them.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that scene.
What else?
What if?
What do you think?
Oh God, I don't know. Mine are too X-Men oriented. They don't resonate with anybody. What is a good one? What is a good one? And it's a lot about role reversals. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of who's a good one? I don't know what a good one would be.
It's just there's so much and what if Stephen Strange never got into an accident? Mm-hmm. What if it was Peter Parker who didn't get bit by a spider?
And that's a real story now. But not entirely.
What if it was Mary Jane?
Can you imagine? They call her, she's the Spinneret in an alternate universe, the Spinneret. But that would be an interesting one, like to really, and I think inevitably in the versions that have been done on that, the person who gets bitten does not use it for good, almost always, because it's always about the person that's at the heart of that catalyst, you know what I mean? And it's like Steve, for instance.
Yeah. Oh, what about this one? What if Infinity War when Thanos stabs Iron Man?
Yeah.
What if Iron Man just died right there?
I thought he was. I thought he was done.
Yeah.
I remember when I sit in that theater and I gasped.
Yeah.
My gasp. I was like, he's
I've
done.
never heard a theater go so silent so quickly when Iron Man got stabbed. And I was like,
well, it's because
no
that
way,
sound.
right?
You hear that sound? It's like,
I was just like, no way,
Yeah.
right? There's no way he dies
he
here
couldn't have, yeah.
on a planet.
That would have sucked.
So, like, but what if he did just end up
Yeah.
dying and Strange never sacrificed the stone?
Oof. There's too much.
Oh yeah, and it goes into another one. Like, what if? Because remember, Stephen Strange said, like, whether it comes to you or the kid, I will not hesitate.
Yeah.
To save the stone. And like, what if he was like, yeah, just die, kill him. You're never
my
getting the stone,
gosh.
dude. Just
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh,
It's hidden in
God.
the stars, and you'll never find it.
Right.
So.
Oh
it's
my
like,
gosh. Because and it's, all of that could have been. Yeah, all it takes is one scenario
What
to change it.
if Star-Lord never made it personal and he didn't start hitting Thanos when he was under Mantis?
That's the big one. That's the one that I would have liked.
And they got the gauntlet off.
Yeah.
And they're like, cool, we did it.
See, now that poses the question: were they meant to lose? Were they meant to lose?
According to Doctor Strange.
Yeah, right.
He knew it was gonna. He knew.
He was like, we're gonna have to sacrifice. We're gonna have to break a few eggs.
Yeah. Why do you? That's what I think. Because obviously Doctor Strange knew. That's why he never said anything.
Right.
During while they were restraining Thanos. Like he wasn't saying anything when Quill was going on his monologue.
And that's the thing. Like people are, Star-Lord. It's all Star-Lord. I'm like, that there were other people there.
Yeah,
And he didn't do anything.
Yeah. The only person that said something was Tony.
Yeah.
He was just like Quill. We almost got it. We almost got it. Cool.
Yeah.
No, keep it cool.
Keep cool.
But Strange never said anything.
He never said
He was just
a
like,
darn thing.
He was probably like,
Here it comes. Here it goes.
God. Oh my God.
Could you imagine?
It's like, it is what it is.
Yeah, you gotta let it go.
But like,
man.
what if they got it off, and then it was like, cool.
That would have been the
We
end
won.
of that movie. But what's crazy is that Gamora would still be dead.
Yeah,
That's
not changing
messed
anything.
up.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I don't like it.
Sorry, Quill.
I know. So yeah, I'm curious to see
So
how
good.
they do.
They're just.
Ugh.
That's why I think like they can do this show for multiple seasons,
Yeah.
however long they want to.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like,
because
dude,
there is an endless amount of story to tell
endless.
and flip. So it's like,
Endless. I think. Nah, I'm not gonna mention. Never mind.
what?
There's so many. What if Drax had killed Gamora in the prison?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's
Like,
a good one.
What if Gamora had killed Star-Lord in the prison?
What if Vision hadn't died?
I was thinking that as well.
What if Pietro hadn't died?
Oh, that's a big one.
And
that would've
Clint
changed.
did.
Yeah. Poor Clint. Why leave Clint
I
alone?
know. Clint's always like in these near-death
I know.
situations and getting bailed out, bro.
That's why I'm telling you. I know. That's why I'm so paranoid that Yelena's going to come for him and
just
kill
murder him.
Yeah, I think she's going to do it.
Gruesomely.
I'm not going to say I think she's going to do it. I think it's a high probability that she's going to
Like it ends.
Get away
The
with
series
it.
ends with him just dying.
dying. Yeah, like because it doesn't say Clint Barton. It's not called Clint Barton. It's called Hawkeye. And Kate Bishop is also Hawkeye.
And she takes over the mantle because
Exactly.
Yelena comes and murders him.
And murders Clint. But that's a good call. Like for Scarlet Witch in particular. Like what?
She's
if
gone through
Pietro-
so much.
She's
Like
gone
what
through
if
so much.
what if
yeah.
she didn't have this much just heartbreak?
Yeah.
What if she was like, what if everything was just okay?
Yeah.
Like Pietro
'cause
doesn't die.
If you think of that, how she senses his death, she then that creates the chaos energy she uses there, and then she goes to kill Ultron himself, and then Vision comes to like
save, yeah.
to take her to safety. None of that would have happened if Pietro hadn't died. If Pietro had just come back, they all
True.
rendezvous, they all get
Cool.
off off
won.
of Sokovia, and and then they won again. But then there wouldn't be WandaVision and all that stuff. But even then, if Thanos hadn't gotten the stone, for instance, from Vision, we see that they gave that to us in the
Yeah.
film, and he used the time stone for that.
What if
So-
Ultron succeeded in his plan and that crater drops?
Oofed. Oh my god.
I know.
Oh
I
boy.
know. There's so.
It's all those scenarios.
Oh, what if Tony and Banner didn't create Ultron.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang,
There's
man. Dang.
so many.
What if Bucky hadn't been frozen?
What if was
Hadn't been frozen. If he was never in cryo, he might be an old man by now, actually.
what if he just died on the
He
train? What if he just
died.
died on the train?
Yeah, he would have died in 96. Or if he just died on the train. Yeah, that'd be interesting. What if?
What if Goose never took out Nick Fury's eye?
Some people pretend that never happened because they're just like, wait, what?
People are so mad that was the reason he lost his eye. And I was like, honestly, I think it's freaking hilarious.
It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny.
Like, who cares?
Because everybody had theories like, oh, how did he lose his eye? Oh, was it Wolverine? Oh, there's 3 claws on his eye. Oh, it's Wolverine.
No, it was a cat.
It was a
flurkin.
It was a kitty cat holding the cosmic cube.
Hilarious. Was it a cop out? Sure.
It was definitely a cop out.
But it's hilarious. I think it's hilarious.
It's good. Well, I mean, if anybody has any other what if scenarios, please
I
let
can
us
literally
know.
just keep going, but
I want more from Geoffrey's brain.
I think it's just gonna be 2-hour episodes of me just like I'm
What if?
literally that Charlie Day meme right now.
What if? Oh gosh. Well, okay. So that said, would you believe it's the end of the show?
Crazy.
Crazy. But I do want to say, I mean, this is probably a no-brainer. Our next character study will be the one and only Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi.
Jeffrey and I had the awesome opportunity to see the film ahead of its public release date, thanks to Marvel.
Yes.
And so we watched it on August 18th. And no spoilers, but I think easy to say we both loved it.
Yeah, make sure you guys watch this movie.
Yes.
It's only going to be in theaters.
Please
Watch it. It's worth it. I will say it's a Marvel movie, but there were times where I forgot I was watching a Marvel film.
It's so new,
and
it's
fresh,
very fresh. It's something we haven't
it's great.
seen.
Oh my gosh,
from
I
Marvel.
was just dumbfounded. I was like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
this is just different."
Yeah,
Go
And
watch it.
Please do. September 3rd. Go support our Asian crew there.
Yeah,
and Asian creators.
Can't wait to talk about them.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome because again, this is a character I don't know anything about way before my time, and he just kind of faded into the background, and to kind of see him slowly coming back to the surface in a more tasteful way. Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Love it.
We may have a special guest for that episode. We're not sure yet.
Not sure.
We'll, stay tuned for some announcements if so. And then after that, we'll have another mini Marvel. So if you have any questions for Geoffrey or yours truly, please send them our way. Anything else left on the what if board for you before we go down our final credits?
Off the top of my what if. What if Ego never planted that tumor in Quill's mom?
Oh man, what if he never smashed that Walkman? Oh.
Yeah. Oh, that too. Yeah.
So if he never planted the tumor,
what if
then she never would have died. Then he never would have ran outside. He never would have been in the hospital. He never would have been picked up by the Ravagers in the first place.
Yes.
That could have unraveled the T'Challa thing.
Yeah.
It could have.
And or what if? And
he would still be sweeping up at Dairy Queen.
Yeah. Or what if he did combine with his dad on the planet, and they just took over to the freaking world and was in a bad way.
Universe. They could have been the Thanos of Infinity War.
Yeah, because
they're
pretty
like
powerful.
it.
Like, oh my god.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Yeah.
But that could have also spawned a whole new, plethora of characters to be introduced. Because in the comic books, Peter Quill has a half sister, and she's like omnipotent. Jeffrey's like, what's happening? The family trees, I'm telling you.
Another one involving Quill. What if he was able to kill Gamora on Nowhere?
Ooh.
Instead of having Thanos reality stone him with the bubbles and everything.
Wait, you said, yeah. Oh, I didn't even think of that. Wow. That reaction.
Yup.
Ooh.
Yup.
Oh, can you imagine that was their last thing? It was like, I love you. Like,
another one. Oh my god. What if the Collector had collected all this Infinity Stones?
yeah, that could have been a probable one because that he was thinking about it.
He's already had 2.
He was thinking about it.
Oh, yeah.
And then he was like, I cannot do it. Karina.
What if Karina was able to wield the Power Stone in that scene?
In that scene. Oh man, that would have been interesting for sure.
It's just,
I forgot she died there, huh?
I know.
Yeah.
I can go.
Yeah, because it's interesting in Infinity War, the books. Nebula has the gauntlet at one point.
And what if Nebula wields the gauntlet in these movies?
Everybody would be in trouble. Everybody. She'd go after Gamora first, but everybody.
What if Iron Man doesn't die from the stones?
Can you imagine if he didn't die from the snap? That would have been like a happy ending. Happy.
It would have been like the most. He'll probably be like, yeah, you did it.
Yeah.
You saved the world again.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there would be no funeral, and then
who knows how that would have ended?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
What if Cap didn't miss his jump point?
I was gonna say that was the next thing I was gonna think of. Like, what if Cap didn't?
And he doesn't pass on the shield to
he doesn't
to
pass
Sam.
on, and then we wouldn't have. Oh my god. Would Bucky still have long hair?
Maybe, probably. Oh my god.
Yeah, there's so many. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
What if Wanda didn't take over a whole city?
A whole town.
A whole town.
And then there wouldn't have been.
What if Jimmy Woo never learned that magic trick from Paul?
From Scott. Oh my gosh. Then we wouldn't have had Jimmy Woo and Darcy together with potential to meet Luis one day.
What if Monica Rambeau was able to make it through the force field, but without getting the powers?
Yeah.
She was just able to walk through.
That would have been a bummer. What if Monica hadn't died? Maria hadn't died.
See? I hate this.
Oh,
this is the
if?
worst.
That's a lot.
We can literally just spend like 2-3 hours just asking what if. I hate this.
That said, thanks for listening, guys. We are a great salute to Robin, Joe, Liz, Ed, Claire, Jenny, Andrew, and Melanie for your constant support.
Thank you.
Follow us on social at STRKCNTRST. We have Patreon. If you want to become a Patreon, we have Patreon.
Super easy.
And that is all.
And with that said, we will see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
As for me, these are my stories. I observe all that transpires here, but I do not, cannot, will not interfere. For I am